We are learning Likkutei Sichos, Volume 2, Parshas Chukat, Chapter 1. Beautiful, beautiful Sicha, if I'm allowed to give it a description. A round of applause here. No, it's really beautiful. I'm saying it because I want you to keep learning with me when you're in London. Okay. במדרשי חז"ל הקשורים בפרשת השבוע, פרשת חוקת, מסופר שעני הכבוד היו בזכותו של אהרון, הבאר בזכות מרים, והמן היה בזכות משה. So the Medrash regarding our parsha says, and says it now in this parsha because Miriam passes away, and that's why they didn't have water. So it tells us apropos that the manna came down in the merit of Moses, and the clouds of glory came in the merit of Aaron, and the well, the water, came in the merit of Miriam. She'Aaron u'Miriam istalku, which happens in our parsha, that Aaron and Miriam pass away, our parsha, and in Matos. Where's Aaron? That's described. Also in Chukas. So they're both here. They're both here.
I don't know which one the date is mentioned.
So it's closer. No, it's closer to Rosh Chodesh Shabbos. So it must be in. Oh, it's mentioned in Dvarim, I think. In any case, so when Miriam passed away, the well wasn't there anymore. And when Aaron passed away, the clouds of glory disappeared. But then in the end, they were brought back in the merit of Moses. So Moses in the end had the merit of all three of them. And so after they had passed away, all three still existed. The manna in the merit of Moses originally, and the clouds of glory that Moses took over from Aaron, and the well that he took over from his sister Miriam. Now, what does this all mean? Moses is definitely, when we think about what is Moses is the Torah. So lamot she'Torah hi chokhmah kekatuv. So we understand in the sense that this all came back in the merit of Torah. All three of these. This is going to be very important for the continuation. But what he's saying basically is that Moses in his merit means that the merit of the Torah is enough to bring back the clouds of glory, the well, and, as it was originally, the manna. Okay. And we'll see that even it makes sense that why Moses' original merit was bringing the manna, and why that's related to the Torah innately. So, in spite of the fact that Torah is wisdom, as it says, that it is your wisdom and your comprehension before the nations, meaning that when they look at you, they'll say that you're a wise people. Why? Because you have the Torah. You're not wise because you're brilliant, because you have some great minds. It's like the Koreans, they figured it out. The Jews are brilliant, not because they have good genes. They're brilliant because they engage in Torah all the time. They've been engaging in Torah for generations. And Torah made them smart. Koreans especially. All the others, I don't know. Maybe some of the others also understand this. Some of them don't. But again, it's not because we have something special. It's because we have the Torah. Nonetheless, in spite of the fact that it is wisdom, it's not called wisdom. It's not called the wisdom of the Torah. It's just called Torah. And Torah means to instruct. So it comes to instruct us. And what that means when you apply it is that everything that's told to us in the Torah, regardless of what part of the Torah it's in, is in the end, or can in the end be interpreted as an instruction that can guide you in daily life. And that's the most important thing. That's what Chassidus comes to do. Chassidus, especially according to the Rebbe, is an attempt to take what we learned in the Torah and to apply it, and to make it into an instruction that can guide our lives. So the Rebbe saw the Torah very much as an instruction book, as something that you can take a lesson from every one of its ideas. You can take a lesson, a practical lesson, because the Rebbe was very practical. It was very interesting that he was born in Russia, because he should have been born in America, right? Because America is pragmatism. And pragmatism was not invented in Russia. In fact, you could say that in some sense the Russian attitude is almost the opposite of American pragmatism. But that's how the Rebbe is. Everything is very practical. כלומר, לא רק המצוות שבתורה, מצוות עשה מצוות לא תעשה משמשות הוראה לחיים. It's not only the commandments that are an instruction. כי אם גם סיפורי התורה משמשים הוראה בחיים, but the stories are also a source for instruction in life. הרי גם המצוות עצמן לא נכתבו בדרך ציווי, כי בדרך סיפור, שקדוש ברוך הוא ציווה למשה ומשה אמר לבני ישראל. Because it's very uncommon for the Torah even to describe the mitzvos as a commandment. It says, it tells us in the way of a story, it relates and it narrates that God told Moses to tell the people. But the Torah doesn't say, do this, do this. It's very uncommon. Okay? So we understand that even the mitzvahs are said in a story-like manner. So even the stories have instructions in them. And just as the mitzvahs are a form of are instruction in and of themselves, even though they were written in a narrated form, so the stories too have instructions, should be understood as instructions because they are part of the Torah. Okay, so we've established that the Torah is about instruction, not about stories. לפיכך כותב הרמב"ם, והדבר מופיע ברמז אף בגמרא, שאין הבדל בין הפסוק ואחות ליותן תמנע לבין הפסוק שמע ישראל. It's for this reason that the Rambam writes that all the verses of the Torah are equally part of the Torah. They're all at the same level. What does it mean? Even a verse that's completely descriptive, like the sister of Lotan, the son of Ishmael, was Timnah. Okay? Short verse, 3 words, is equal. There's no difference between it and the verse, Hear, O Israel, God is our God, God is one. Havaya is our God, Havaya is one. Which is the ultimate statement of instruction, that you should see the world as one. למרות שהפסוק שמע כולל את אחת המצוות העיקריות, even though the verse Shema, Hear, O Israel, contains one of the most important commandments, like we said, to believe in God's oneness, in His unity. And Achot Lotan Timna is just a story, it's just a description. שכן שניהם הם סיפורים, שניהם משמשים הוראות ושניהם מהווים חוכמתו ורצונו יתברך. Because both of them are stories, because again, what is it saying? Hear, O Israel, God, Havaya is our God, Havaya is one. And it's telling it as a story of what Moses told the people. This is what he told them. Hear, O Israel, this is what I want to tell you. I want to tell you so and so. I'm not commanding you. I'm telling you a story. And the description of Lotan's sister was Timnah is also a description. But they're both stories, and they are both instructions. And both have from God's wisdom and His will. Because an instruction obviously has to be related to will. The story could be a reflection of wisdom, but the will is reflected by a commandment, by an instruction. כשם שכל סיפורי התורה משמשים הוראות, כך גם סיפורנו האמור לעיל משמש הוראה בחיים. So just as all the stories of the Torah carry instructions, so our story about these 3 miraculous events or entities that accompanied the people in the wilderness, the clouds of glory, the well, and the manna, it's a story, they too contain instructions. So what is the instruction? Let's see. So to understand this, we first of all have to understand what they represent. What do the clouds of glory, the manna, and the water represent? שלושה פרטים אלו, ענני הכבוד מן ומים, ניתנים להבנה ונמצאת בחינתם בתורה. So to understand them, we have to understand what purpose do they serve, or not what purpose, what do they correspond to in the Torah? They correspond to specific things. Let's see. ענני הכבוד הגנו מבחוץ. The clouds of glory were an external protection. הגנו מארבע רוחות. They protected them from winds, desert winds, which are very unpleasant. הרגו את הנחשים שהיו במדבר. They killed the snakes and all the other dangerous animals that came close to the camp. הנמיכו את הערים. They flattened the mountains. גייצו את הלבושים. They ironed their clothing, which really ironing means they cleaned them. ככתוב, שמלתך לא בלתה מעליך. It says that your garment did not deteriorate on your skin, meaning that it remained whole. It grew with you also. כל אלה דברים ששמירה והגנה מבחוץ. All of these are considered external protections from things that are coming from the outside. That's what the clouds of glory represent. What is the manna? What does the man represent? עניינו של המן הוא אכילה, ובמן הייתה אפשרות לחוש כל טעם שעליו הרצון, מהותה של אכילה היא קליטה פנימית. So it says manna was eaten, consumed, and so it has to do with integrating into yourself. This is what we call internal light. Okay? It's integrated into you. And depending on what you wanted to, you could taste any taste you wanted in it. Okay. So that's the manna. What about the well? The well is water. מים אינם דבר מזין לכשעצמו. Water is not sustaining. Sustaining is the wrong word. It's not satiating, but even more than that. It's not. It doesn't provide you with. It's not nutritious. That's the word, exact word. Mezin is nutritious, so it's not nutritious. It doesn't give you nutrition. ולפיכך אומר הרמב"ם את הטעם לכך שאין מערבין במים. So there's a very interesting halacha. When you want to set up an eruv, and this we're talking about eruv tchumin, not eruv chatzerot. Okay? But in eruv tchumin, two types of eruv, two types of extending your living space on Shabbos. There's the extending the living space in a shared courtyard, so that everyone can carry things from one apartment to another. And there's extending the living space beyond the 2,000 cubits are almost, that you can walk outside of the city. Okay? When you want to walk outside further than 2,000 cubits, you can walk another 2,000 by preparing some food there, before Shabbos. And so you prepare it there, and you say, when I come here on Shabbos, I'll eat this. So I'm preparing. So it's really I prepared my area even before Shabbos, and then you get another 2,000 amot, and that was usually enough to get even from one village to the next, and that's what they call the Neruv. That's a Eruvei Tchumin. Okay. So says the Rambam.
It's only a mile.
Okay.
Not very far.
So says the Rambam. What's the reason? The Mishnah says in Eruvin in chapter 3, it starts with this. It says, En marvin b'mayim. You can't do an Eruv Tchumin with water. You can't leave water there and say, this is my meal for Shabbos, and because of that, now I get another 2,000 cubits to walk. Rambam gives a reason for it in his Perush on the Mishnah there. He says, En marvin b'mayim. Why can't you do the Eruv with water? משום שאפשר לערב רק בדבר המזין, ומים אינם דבר מזין, because you can only do the eruv with something that's nutritious, it gives you some nutrition. And the water does not give you nutrition, but the Rambam adds something very important that's not in the Mishnah. This I could have figured out by myself. The Rambam now adds, and this he knows this obviously because he's a doctor. פעולתם של המים, so why do we need water in the first place? שהיא מפזרת את המזון לכל חלקי הגוף. Because water is a transport. You need it to transport the nutrition throughout the body, but it's not the nutrition itself. By the way, the Mishnah also says, this is interesting in and of itself, that salt you also cannot do an eruv with. For the same reason, it's not nutritious. And the Rambam gives the same explanation. And he says there, because the salt is also in order to transport, and we know this, what do salts do? Salt is what crosses the membrane, the lipid membrane of every cell. Without salt, there's no transport across the membranes. It's a very interesting thing. Obviously, he didn't know about the cells, but it's probably on the larger scale, it's also the same thing. That's why when you do fasting, you do health fasting, not fasting when you, although you have to see, I don't know what the halacha is with that. But in health fasting, for sure, one of the things you have to eat anyway, even if you don't eat anything else, is a little bit of salt. You have to have every few hours. I take like I cover I lick my finger and whatever comes up, whatever grains of salt, every few hours, and then you have no headaches. The headaches go, everything, nothing. You feel like completely normal. That just cleans your body. It's perfect. This I learned from that Rambam, who says you need it for the transport. So the well represents the transport property of the Torah. We'll see what that means. So we had three things, right? We had the clouds of glory, which are the way that you're protected from the outside. The manna is the nutrition, and the water is the transport. Okay? And these three properties are in the Torah itself. The Torah provides nutrition, spiritual nutrition. יש בתורה, כן, כפי שנותנת לאדם באופן של פנימיות. יש בתורה כפי שמגינה מבחוץ. There's a way that the Torah, there's an aspect of the Torah that protects you from the outside. ויש בתורה כפי שמחלקת אותן שתי הבחינות האמורות לכל ישראל. And there is a way in which the Torah transports, meaning distributes. It's the transport distribution system that it gives these two qualities, the inside and the outside, the nutrition and the protection from the outside, to all of Israel. I think we need to end. So God willing, tomorrow we will have our learning at 11 our time, something like 10:30 my time. It will be 8:30 in London, and we'll learn by Zoom. The amazing thing about Zoom is that I can directly broadcast it to Facebook. Yeah.
I'll be in the bed by about 8:30, which means I'm done with it now. Do my very best.
And if not, it'll be after you daven. Do they have Sfarim there? So take one of this.
No.
Take one. There's plenty of them here.
I've got like this taking, because they're done about the suitcases, and there's going to be suitcases, there's not going to be suitcases.